we're talking about. MicroStrategy is going to be purchasing. Hello, everybody. Dump in Bounty V is fine. Great. Thanks so much. Chewy Coin right around the corner, right after I launched Tomato Coin. So let's go through this quickly. MicroStrategy is going to buy a ton more Bitcoin. Here's what's going on. And I want to talk about this because it's amazing and it's a great lesson for us investors. Not for the day traders, not for the leverage traders, for investors. If you're like me, you just like to invest. If you want to trade, I trade a little bit, that's fine. Here's some great advice. It's called dollar cost averaging. And it's the thing we talk about a lot. But what they're doing is they're bringing their total cost down. I'll explain in a second. So we're going to talk about this real quick. Talk about their average price that they actually had. And then we're going to talk about real quick about the cult of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. And I want to make a delineation between a cult, rabid fans, and just a great community, because I think it's important that we talk about that and exactly what's going on in this space. But before we get into all that, I want to give you some ammo for when you go out there and people are talking this nonsense about how, you know what, Bitcoin and crypto is only used for illicit activities and that thing like that ransomware. And if you use more Bitcoin, you're going to just increase all this ransomware that is going on, because those criminals, they sure are crafty and they can get away with a lot of stuff. Here's the thing. This just came out, gosh, what, about 30 minutes ago? The majority of the 4.4 million crypto ransom payment in the Colonial Pipeline hack was recovered. Well, how'd they do that, Rob? Well, this is how. Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco said the FBI was able to turn the tables on the group known as the Dark Side, believed to be based in Russia. Shocker. FBI Deputy Director Paul Abate said investigators were able to trace the payment to a virtual currency wallet and then seized more than $2 million in cryptocurrency funds. Let me read that again, just real quick. The FBI, the government, was able to trace the payment to a virtual currency wallet and then seize more than $2 million in cryptocurrency funds. So for everybody else out there who's going, you know, this cryptocurrency, illicit activities, Janet Yellen talked about it, just point them to this article and I'll link it in the description, or you can just Google search it. Just came out. So hopefully that'll be the poster child for people to stop running their mouth and just do some of their own research, government officials, for stuff like this. So they can't just keep going. Illicit activities, cartels, bad people, it's going to be awful, da-da-da. This is what they did. They used a cryptocurrency wallet and they were able to trace it, which is exactly what it's supposed to be designed for. Public ledger, right? Does that make sense? I hope so. All right, let's break into it, right? Off of my little tangent. So MicroStrategy is selling $400 million in bonds to buy Bitcoin, holding to exceed 100,000 Bitcoin. So that's big news, right? I think it's pretty big. And I know some people have discrepancies with Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy as opposed to what their company actually does and how they are holding Bitcoin. But I will say this. Michael Saylor has come through in a clutch every single time when there is an opportunity, and to show, let's be honest, a pretty good head and shoulders as far as an investor. What is he doing here? So MicroStrategy Inc. announced Monday, that's today, it intends to offer $400 million of senior secured notes during due 2028 in a private offering to qualified institutional buyers. So like, hey, look, this is due right in 2028. We want that money. And the reason we want it is because we want to use this to buy Bitcoin. And the company detailed this. The notes will be fully and unconditionally guaranteed on a senior secured basis, jointly and severally by MicroStrategy Services Corporation, a wholly owned subsidiary of MicroStrategy, and certain subsidiaries of MicroStrategy that may be formed or acquired after the closing of the offering. Basically, they're like, look, we're going to take this money and we're going to buy a bunch of Bitcoin. Thank you. And then they further elaborated and said, MicroStrategy's existing approximately 92,079 Bitcoins will be held by a newly formed subsidiary, MicroStrategy, or MacroStrategy LLC. That's pretty good. Macro and micro. MicroStrategy intends to use the net proceeds from the sale of the notes to acquire additional Bitcoins. So what are they going to do? Essentially, they're saying, hey, we're going to buy an additional 11,000, which is going to bring us up to a total of 100,000 Bitcoin. And let me do some quick math. So there is 21 million Bitcoin, and and they have 100,000 of those. That's a good amount of Bitcoin to hold for one single company. I think it's, you know, if you're talking about decentralization and what you really want, I'll tell you what you want. What you really, really want is these types of huge entities to not own so much Bitcoin. I know some people, you got to take the good and the bad. Let's be honest. So when a company like this holds Bitcoin and says, we're not selling, we're not going to give it up, we're not going to do anything, because we see Bitcoin going to 1 million, 3 million. I think Saylor even said it's going to go to 10 million per Bitcoin, something crazy. So he's like, why would I sell it? That's good. Now, it's not good for decentralization, but it sure is good for when you want to stabilize the market, and that's for darn sure. So that's the first piece. This is the interesting part, and this is why I talk about this is a good lesson for investors, not for traders, not for investors. This is why. Because Microstrategy, this is on May 13th, acquires additional 15 million in Bitcoin. This is on May 13th, at an average price of 55,000. So their average price has been actually fluctuating up because they were buying at 55,000, 58,000, I want to say over 60,000. So even though they got in early, that whole price, because they bought at a higher level, means that their average price is pretty high. And that's always not so great for your shareholders. Now, I know that Michael Saylor can just tell the shareholders like, hey, look, I'm the majority owner, so what I say goes. Democracy, I don't think so. It's my way or the highway. Regardless, though, if you're a business, the job of your business, of you to acquire assets, is to acquire those assets at the lowest possible price that you possibly can. Michael Saylor can't go back and buy Bitcoin at $100. He just can't do that. But what he can do is go, look, it was all the way at 64,000, and we bought pretty high at that point, somewhere around there. And then it went down to 55, got a little bit there. And then it's down to 50, and then to 40, and now we're at, geez, what are we at? 34,000. That's a great price for them, right? So what they're doing is they're like, hey, let's just lower our average cost of Bitcoin. This is why I say, like for me, when I got in 2017, I bought Bitcoin at, I think the highest I paid was 17,800, and I thought I was a genius. And then in like a month or so, we saw it go from 17,800 to like around $4,000. And I thought I was a moron. Is what it is. Instead of me selling and going, well, golly gee whiz, I guess I just didn't make it. Poor old Rob. I was like, no, I'm not in the business of losing money. And I just kept buying. I dollar cost average, and I bought it at like $4,000 and $3,800, and I just kept buying. And it slowly lowered my average cost of how much Bitcoin I picked it up for as I dollar cost average. And now, as it's above 30,000, I'm like, whatever. Really, it doesn't affect me. And that's what I talk about in some of the other videos. I say, look, all these different YouTubers and people on Twitter, they're really cool and calm, but you have to understand, they've been in the game for a long time. So when you get upset with yourself because maybe you're new, don't get upset. Because when you're here, you're probably thinking like, well, why can't I be as calm as Rob? Well, Rob went through that nonsense in 2017 to go through all that hell to get here. So don't compare yourself to some people who are just like, no big deal. Let's see how people act if Bitcoin ever did crash down to like $2,000, $1,000. That'll be the tale. But for me right now, I believe Bitcoin is still going to around $130,000 to $150,000 per Bitcoin this year, by the end of this year. Not financial advice, just financial opinion. And that's why I really don't care too much about the fluctuation in price. So good on for MicroStrategy. A lot better than, who's that CEO of that car company? Yeah, that guy, which I do not say his name on this channel until he gets his head right. And that's it. So that's the big thing. And lastly, on this piece, I just want to remind you of something that Winston Churchill said. When you're going through hell, just keep going. Same thing happened in all my businesses and everything in my lives, and even my investments, heck, even my marriage. There's been those times, right? When you go through a lot of problems, just put your head down. Just say, I know where I need to go, and just go to that point. That's all you have to do. And it's the same thing across everything that you want to do. And it usually works itself out.